So now that our model is all nice and clean, we've gotten rid of a lot of the loose and unnecessary geometry. It is time to do a few other things. Let's add in a sky, and then let's do a little material baking. So if we go to our edit, go to preferences, add-ons, search for dynamic sky, select it, make sure it's turned on. Then we can go over to options over here, click on this little doohickey, and we can go to create, dynamic sky, create. Then it says here, please select the world dynamic sky. Go to our world, down here, dynamic. There we go. Now you can edit, you can change the horizon color. I can make the horizon color, ooh, crazy, or light, or desaturated so it's less hazy. You know, there's all kinds of stuff you can do in here. How much cloud opacity, the density of the clouds, you can control the sun. All that kind of stuff. There's actually also a light right here. If I click on that light, there's this light bulb over here. I can change that to the sunlight, and then I can G to grab it and Z to kind of pull it up a little bit. I can rotate around here and see how the sun is angled into my building. Rotate again. Maybe I'll pull it in different directions, and you can see how the light is shifting. And that's because I'm in the cycled rendered view. If you're not in the rendered view, you're not gonna be able to see that. Okay, so I can kind of shine it right into my skylights there. That's what I want to do. Cool, so that's adding a dynamic sky to your scene. And then the next thing I want to do is go in and fix this parquet floor. So I'll switch to this visual style here. And then I'm going to select the floor, hit Control I to invert selection, then H to hide everything. So now we're just looking at our floor. First step, after we've already, of course, decimated it, is to, I also need to go ahead real quick. I'm sorry, I forgot almost about this. I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, maybe we need to change this first. So if we go to, the scene here, units, change it to metric to imperial. That'll give us feet instead. So we exported the FBX in feet, so we need to make sure we're in feet here, just so everything makes sense. And the easiest way to double check that is Shift A, bring in a mesh cube, and then I'm going to take my cube and I'm going to say, okay, what size is it going to be? I want it 8 by 8, and that looks about right in my scene. Okay, big 8 by 8 foot cube should match up with my design. All right, so looking in the shading view here, we can see our object, and you can see the material, and there's just one instance of it plugged into the base color. So as we want to modify this, we do want to make sure our UV map is looking okay. So if I go to my UV editing tool here, I can see the UV map looks very nice. So I'm going to actually stick with this UV map. It's fine. So I'm going to go back over to rendering. To shading. But one other thing, the reason why we deleted the bottom off of our ground plane is so that there aren't two of these giant UV map structures on here, which would mean we would have to make twice as big of a material, take up twice as much space, and we don't need that much information. So let's go back over to texture painting, or shading, and add a couple of nodes here. So the way we work with nodes is basically it's kind of a form of code that's added to the material to make it do different things. And to reiterate past discussions on this, you almost look at them like guitar pedals that you plug into the object to make different effects, right? So I'm going to bring in a couple of things. I'm going to bring in an input texture coordinate, put that there. I'm going to add an input or a vector and do mapping. Okay. And then we're going to plug in the UV to the vector And you notice the purple matches the purple. The purple matches the purple. It always has a similar kind of matching effect there. And then I'm going to go ahead and bump this up, maybe 10, 10, 10. Looks like it needs to be more like 20, 20, 20. So 20, 20, 20. Okay. And just kind of get a feel for how it will look in the space. Is that too big, too small? You be the judge. We'll tweak it if we need to later on. And then I want to actually go ahead and do a couple of things. I want to bring down the roughness here so it's got a nice gloss to it. And you can pick the effect, how glossy you want it to be. Very good. And that's going to give me kind of what I want there. So in order to make this transfer into other programs, you do want to make sure that your object is set up, UV mapped, and then we're going to bake it. And remember, we're using Simple Bake, which is a paid add-on that you can get from Simple Bakes from the Blender store. So just search for Blender Simple Bake if you haven't already done so, and download the zip file, and then directly add the add-ons here, install. You find it in your downloads, and it'll be simplebake.zip. Click on it, install add-on, and enable it. And then it will show up in the rendering panel over here. And we have Simple Bake right here, the updated version. And I'm going to click on each one of them, and I'm going to look for adding the object here. I'm going to add this object, floor. There we go. PBR bakes, I want diffuse, and I also want roughness / glossiness. So those are the two maps I'm going to bake. I don't need emission or alpha or metalness or any of the other ones for this one. It's only got the color and the shine to it. And then I'm going to make sure I got everything else set up here. Because this is a larger file, I'm going to make this texture a 4K texture. Since it's the whole ground plane, it's going to need to be kind of a little fancier size-wise. Don't need any of this. Export settings. Because this file is not saved yet, so let's go File, Save As, and I'm going to put it in I need a new folder. And save it as 4Gal Blend. Okay, so it's saved now, which means I can now get export settings. So I like to actually export this as a new mesh with the bake on it and then re-import it to a new scene most of the time. So yeah, let's go ahead and do it that way. Fine. Export bakes, export mesh. I'm going to put it into a folder. I'm going to locate that folder in the folder here. And then accept. And then I'm going to title this instead of export. I'm going to title it floor. Okay. PNG is fine. UV settings. And I do not want to do a new UV map because I like the existing UV map. Okay, so we've got all of our settings pretty much set here. The one thing that we do want to do is go under export settings here and make sure that all exports as 16-bit is deselected. Basically what that's going to do is that's going to make all your exports 8-bit, which is going to make them much smaller, but also make them operate better in the Unreal Engine. You would have to change a few parameters in the Unreal Engine if you do not check that. So just make sure that all exports at 16-bit is unselected. By default, any normal maps or anything you have will be put into the proper bit rate. So it should automatically reference the right bit rate for specific types of files that require that bit rate. But once you got that done, go ahead and I think we're ready. Okay. Very good. And I'm going to bake it in the background so I can work on other stuff. Cool. All right, so now it'll be baking in the background. I can do something else. And my bake is finished. Okay. Let's go back into, let's actually just bring everything back. So Alt-H brings everything back. And then I'm going to select this and go Control-I-H, or Command-I-H if you have a Mac. And then we are going to apply the material to this. So we're still in our shader here. Let's go ahead and look at the UV map first. Make sure the UV map looks nice. Can't really complain too much. Looks fine. Fine, fine, fine. Okay, I'll just keep that same UV map. Let's go back over to shading. So now that we got those saved, let's go ahead and apply them here. So we are in the shading portion again here. I want to show you a quick another add-on. So if you go to Properties or Preferences here, go to Add-ons and look for Node Wrangler and turn that on. That's going to help kind of make things go a little faster, so you don't have to go through go through this, and then you can go Shift A, and then you can search for what you want. Search, and let's say like image texture. Okay, put it right there. And then we go to open and we find our saved texture. So I've got my soil diffuse right here, open it up. Okay. And I can plug that yellow into the base color. All right. And then I can go Shift D to duplicate this. And then I'll open up the next one and I'm going to do the normal map. Okay, open it up. And I'm going to put that into the air. And I also want to make sure that my normal map is set to non-color. Okay. And we can see how bumped up it is here. And we might want to change the roughness all the way up and kind of play around. Less metal. We don't need metallic dirt. A little bit of metal in the dirt. Okay. And then we can lower the strength of this, maybe down to 0.25. All right. And then what I want to do is you can add the displacement map, but with the soil, it's not a big deal. And also this object doesn't have a lot of geometry to it, so it won't actually give you that much of a diffusion or of a displacement. So I'm not even going to do it. So I'm just going to use those two maps. So Shift A, and then I'm going to also add some mapping so that I can make multiples of this, the same way we did with the other one. Shift A, and I'm going to do a texture, whoops. Shift A, search texture coordinate right there, bump that into there. Take my UV map, put it into the vector, and my vector, and put it into the vector here and here. And then I'm going to increase this by 25, 25, 25. And that's going to give me my plane here. And I might want to bump this up a little bit more now that I'm looking. Right about there. Okay, so once I get that all done, the next step is to go ahead and bake this. So let's go back to our simple bakes right here. And we'll go to clear out the floor and add in the exterior. Come down here, 4K is fine. I'm going to also add a normal map here. So go ahead and click on normal map. Roughness and glossiness. I don't want to do that even. I can just do that in the next program if I need to. Export the meshes, put it in that same bakes folder, but I will change the name to the same name as the file there. And I'll just go ahead and do a foreground bake. Okay, so the baking is all done here. Perfect. What should we bake next? Let's go back and go Alt H, brings everything back. I'm thinking maybe we'll bake this. Control I for invert selection, and then H. Oops. Control I, H. So let's look at the UV map for this. Sometimes you get a messy map. Is that messy or clean? I can't even tell. It actually looks all right. You just don't want to have anything overlapping. All right, so I think that this UV map is probably okay. And we really won't know until we bring it into the Unreal Engine if we have to redo the map. But I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so let's go ahead and add a new material. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this material, add a new one, and I'm going to call it Vor Metal. Okay. And I want to make this kind of like a golden color. So like that. Well, that kind of color. Put it here. And let's go like this. I'm going to modeling here just to look at it better. So then we can see how the sun's interacting with it. And then I'm going to go to metallic and bump that way up, and roughness, and kind of pull that back. I don't want it to be completely shiny, but I like it to have a little shine to it. All right, cool. So that I think looks pretty good. And we will go ahead and actually bake this into it. So go back over to our Simple Bakes tab. And this time we don't need our normal map. We just need diffuse, rough and glossy, clear. And we're going to add Vor here. And then again down here, switch the name to Vor. And I'm going to do this one 4K as well because it is a large texture. And we'll bake it. Okay, so I baked 2 of them, and I just realized I completely forgot I needed to also bake the metalness. So now I'm just going to do the metalness and get rid of these 2. And same settings is fine, and let's bake it. Okay, so the baking is all done here. Perfect. What should we bake next? Let's go back and go Alt H, brings everything back. I'm thinking maybe we'll bake this. Control I for invert selection, and then H. Oops. Control I, H. So let's look at the UV map for this. Sometimes you get a messy map. Is that messy or clean? I can't even tell. It actually looks all right. You just don't want to have anything overlapping. All right, so I think that this UV map is probably okay. And we really won't know until we bring it into the Unreal Engine if we have to redo the map. But I'm going to leave it like that. All right, so let's go ahead and add a new material. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this material, add a new one, and I'm going to call it vor metal. Okay. And I want to make this kind of like a golden color. So like that. Oh, that kind of color. Put it here. And let's go like this. I'm going to modeling here just to look at it better. So then we can see how the sun's interacting with it. And then I'm going to go to metallic and bump that way up. And roughness and kind of pull that back. I don't want it to be completely shiny, but I like it to have a little shine to it. All right, cool. So that I think looks pretty good. And we will go ahead and actually bake this into it. So go back over to our Simple Bakes tab. And this time we don't need our normal map. We just need diffuse, rough and glossy, clear. And we're going to add vor here. And then again down here, switch the name to vor. And I'm going to do this one 4K as well because it is a large texture. And we'll bake it. Okay, so I baked 2 of them, and I just realized I completely forgot I needed to also bake the metalness. So now I'm just going to do the metalness and get rid of these 2. And same settings is fine, and let's bake it. Okay, so that's done too. Great. Well, so now while we've got this, there are some things we might want to do, right? Like perhaps we want to hide and re-import the new bakes. So if I click on this and go to shading, you can see something like this. So I might want to call this something like Voronoi old or something so that I don't have to, so that I can re-import another one and hide this one. So call this vor old. Okay. And then I can hide it. And now I can file, import FBX, and go to my bakes folder. And there's vor right there. Import. And click on it. Oh, and this one is the this one is the one that just has the metalness on it. So all I got to do now is go ahead and hit Shift D, and I can pull in the other maps. So if I open vor diffuse, open, color goes into there. Then I can open this one, roughness, open, roughness goes into roughness. Cool. So I like to usually keep both of them. I hide the other one and I keep the baked version here. So let me go ahead and just retitle this one instead of baked. I'm just going to call it vor. Okay. And then again with the soil or the exterior, I can do the same. Exterior here. Let me turn that on. Whoops, turn that on here. And you can see all of this is in here, right? So I can call this exterior old. And I'm just keeping these in case something goes wrong later on. I can come back to the ones with all the nodes on it. So now we go ahead and close that. And File, Import, FBX, Exterior, Import. Okay. And then this now has the baked material and the baked normal. All right, and I'll just call it exterior. I don't want it to say baked anymore. Cool. Next, bring in our parquet floor, file. Oh, let's first find our floor here. All right. And then if we click on it again, you can see we've got a roughness, we have our baked diffuse layer, and it all looks very nice. So I want to talk to you lastly about making collections, okay? So a collection is a list of objects that are actually in a separate part of your scene. So this is a good place to create like a collection. I'll call this collection old. So if you just right click inside of this panel here and go to new collection, I can call this collection old. And then I can put an object in there. And this is just so that it doesn't accidentally duplicate when you export. So if I go to like object 11 or artwork 11, which is Oculus here, and I drag it down into old 2, okay, and then I turn this off, it is hiding from my view. So this is where I would put like my old geometry, the original floor that I baked, and now I've got the new bake in here, and the exterior that I've got a new bake in here. So that way when I go to say like I Control I H, right? And then you want to bring everything back, you go Alt H to show everything. Oculus still does not come back, and the reason for that is because it is on this other collection that is hidden from the scene. And that also helps when you're exporting your FBX files too. So when bringing it into the Unreal Engine, you don't duplicate your objects. But that should be it for the baking portion of our episode.